Hello and welcome back to Bitcoin Math. Today we are going to cover a important concept called other people's money, or OPM. And to give a quick overview of what this is, let's just go ahead and check out our friend here at ChatGPT. So just reading through this, right, this is using external capital, loans, investor funds, credit instead of your own money to leverage opportunities, grow wealth, scale businesses, etc. The key is making sure the return from using OPM exceeds the cost of borrowing it. Common in real estate, investing, entrepreneurship, etc. So I want to double click on one thing here. That is ensuring the returns from using OPM exceed the cost of borrowing it. Because that's what we're really going to look at today in a couple of examples using the calculators on bitcoinmath.org. If you've never seen this before, there's some basic instructions, and each calculator also has its own overview video. So one calculator in particular that allows us to show this is the auto purchase. So we're going to use an example of a $50,000 car where we're putting down $50,000. We're going to buy it outright. We're not going to use any OPM. We're going to use all of our own hard-earned cash. Okay? And this is going to be a 5-year loan term. And we have to set the CAGR to get the outputs. So let's go ahead and just say 5-year period. Let's go Sailor base case, 29%. So what are we looking at here? What we're looking at is two scenarios. We'll start with the traditional scenario of just buying the car with cash outright, $50,000. So what you're going to see here is that we have no monthly payment. There is no loan, so we don't owe any interest. We don't owe any principal. Pretty obvious, right? And this is going to save us roughly $480 per month when we compare that to the Bitcoin scenario, where we've actually cut that $50,000 down payment in half, and we've used $25,000 of what? OPM. And that OPM is costing us 5.75%. Right? So yes, we are going to have to pay $480 a month to use other people's money to finance half of this car that we want. And at the end of this 5-year term, we will have spent an extra $3,825 in interest. So yes, there are some pros to using all of your own money. But on the other side of this, what do we have? Well, now we have $25,000 worth of Bitcoin that got us 0.63 Bitcoin at this price, which after the 5-year term is worth close to $90,000 because it's compounding annually at 29%. Right? So remember, the return from what you're using OPM to acquire needs to be greater than the cost of borrowing the money. So is 29% compounding annually better than 5.75% to borrow $25,000? It absolutely is. And that's why in this scenario, when you pay $50,000 cash for a car and it depreciates at 12.5% per year for 5 years, well, you end up with a $29,470 car at the end of 5 years. Whereas in this scenario, hypothetical obviously, but still, if this were to play out, and you bought $25,000 worth of Bitcoin by financing half of the car at 5.75% for 5 years, well, now your net position value is the same $29,000 car plus $89,000 worth of Bitcoin. Okay? So that's one example of OPM. Another example I like is looking at the same scenario but using a home as the asset that we're going to acquire. So same thing, we're going to use a $500,000 house, 30-year fixed mortgage. Let's even say the house appreciates at 7%. And we're going to checkpoint year, we're going to go all the way to the end of the mortgage. And let's go Sailor bear case 21%. Okay? So same thing, right? We're going to buy the entire house with cash. We're going to have a nice monthly payment savings because we're not paying anything out of pocket because we bought the house with cash. And that's going to save us quite a bit of money over the term of the loan, the 30-year term, because we don't have any interest. We're not paying anybody to borrow money. Whereas on this side, yes, we have principal. This is amortized, so these two numbers will fluctuate over the 30-year term, but you will have a $1,539 payment every month for the total mortgage. But remember, now that we're using OPM to finance half of the house, that freed up half of our cash, $250,000, that we were able to buy 3.16 Bitcoin at the market price, which after the 30 years, compounding at 21% annually, is worth $76 million. Okay? So again, this is a hypothetical scenario. I mean, maybe Bitcoin only appreciates at 11% annually for 30 years. But still, even in that case, because the 11% is greater than the cost of borrowing the money, well, you're going to end up in a better position. Because not only that, but the underlying asset itself is only appreciating at 7%. Okay? So that's one other example of OPM. The last one, a bit more nuanced and a bit more complex, but let's go ahead and rip through it. So in this model, what we're going to look at is, what if we took our economic energy, our income, we go to work, we give time and energy, and in exchange, we get paid dollars. Well, what if we converted all of our dollars into Bitcoin right away when we got paid, and then we figured out a way to borrow and use OPM to get the dollars that we need to live life? So basically, we're converting our economic energy into Bitcoin, and we're using OPM to pay ourselves whatever the salary is that we need to live. So to model this, let's just go ahead and say, making $10,000 a month, we're going to borrow at, say, 10.95%. We're getting 5-year salary increases each year, and let's say the annual inflation rate is 3%. Now, this is going to show us an output for 20 years. So let's go ahead and model, we'll go Sailor base case 21%. Okay? Now, the chart is going to show us a couple of things here. First and foremost, you can see everything's pretty similar at the beginning. But over time, you can see this orange line diverges from the black line, because while your annual income is going up because of your year-over-year salary increases, the continued 3% inflation has actually reduced your purchasing power in that final year all the way down to less than $170,000. And then in the purple, what you're seeing is, well, what if the what does the average value in Bitcoin look like based on how much we've stacked throughout this period? And we'll dive into that here in a moment. So looking at these numbers, again, this can be a little bit, there's quite a bit going on here. So I encourage you to read the hoverovers, read the overview, kind of get a sense of this, watch the overview video as well. But just in going down to the final year here, right, in year 20, we're now up to $303,000 in salary. But because of that 3% annual inflation, we've lost 44% of our purchasing power, meaning our $303,000 salary only buys us $169,000 worth of stuff, right? But remember, we're also converting all of that money to buy Bitcoin, and by year 20, we've stacked 10.8 Bitcoin, which at 21% compound growth annually is now worth $2.9 million per coin. So that means we've got roughly $32 million worth of Bitcoin value. Now let's get into the loan part, right? So because we've been borrowing against our Bitcoin to get the money we need to live, and we've been rolling that forward every year, well, we do have a pretty large amount of interest owed by this final year. When combined, and then also combined with the underlying principal, we've got roughly $7.8 million in debt because of this loan that we've continuously refinanced to fund our lives and give us the dollars that we need to live. That's a big loan, yes, but remember, we've also stacked $32 million worth of Bitcoin, subtract the $7.8 million that you have in debt, and your net benefit at the end of this 20-year period is roughly $24 million. And when you divide that 24 million by the number of years, which is 20, that means you gave yourself an average annual pay increase of $1.2 million in Bitcoin value simply by using other people's money to live your life and saving your own economic energy in Bitcoin. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed. Last but not least, none of this is financial advice. We're not financial advisors. We're just nerds that like Bitcoin and like financial literacy and other educational concepts. And we decided to create some tools and some resources for people to use in hopes that they can benefit in similar ways that we have. But again, strictly educational, not meant to be financial advice. If you do want to take that next step, we're happy to point you in the right direction. Feel free to reach out, ask questions, leave us suggestions on how we can make this better. And we appreciate your support. And with that, we will see you on the next one.